The year 1975 lit the fuse on a new idea of American rock. At the center was Bruce Springsteen, New Jersey bar band lifer turned songwriter and bandleader, pushing himself and the E Street Band to make an album that felt like freedom with the meter running. Born to Run added anthems like Thunder Road, 10th Avenue Freeze Out, and the widescreen Jungleland to the canon, vaulted a hungry working musician into national focus, and reset expectations for what a rock album could sound and feel like on stage and on vinyl. Today, you'll learn how the songs took shape under label pressure, why the lineup changed at the exact moment the music leveled up, and how studio experiments became a signature sound. You'll follow the near collapse and last-minute breakthroughs, the bottom line shows that turned skeptics into believers, the Time Newsweek fame shock, and the legal fight that threatened to halt the momentum just as it began. In late 1973, Bruce Springsteen, then a hard-working New Jersey bandleader with two well-reviewed but slow-selling albums, set out to write a song that could change his fortunes. He settled on a title, found a strong guitar riff, and began shaping what became Born to Run. Columbia wanted a clear radio single before funding another album, so he tightened his writing into shorter lines and bigger melodies. In parallel, a far more ambitious piece, Jungleland, started to take form and hinted at the broader cinematic scale he wanted the next record to carry. By January 1974, the band was rehearsing the new material in a cold garage and testing ideas at 914 Sound Studios even before the lyrics were finished. On January 28th, they made a 10-hour drive to Nashville to open 2 nights for blues great Freddie King, timing the shows with a CBS sales convention. Invitations went out to the convention hotel. No executives came. The group played full sets anyway, mixing earlier songs with long instrumental passages and the new work because the performance in the room still mattered. The road kept throwing challenges at them. After a support slot in Cleveland, they pushed through a blizzard to Springfield College, where a power outage forced Springsteen to carry the show at the piano until the lights returned. A club stand in Atlanta followed. In Lexington, they headlined a campus show, opened quietly with New York City Serenade, and still sent the crowd out buzzing. Audiences were beginning to respond, even as radio play and marketing lagged. These months also marked the last sustained run with the original lineup, a sign that changes were coming. Behind the scenes, label leadership shifted, and early allies moved on. The demand for a defining single set the stakes and shaped every decision in the studio and on stage. The next phase would bring a new outside ear, a sharper lineup, and a public statement that widened the conversation. Steps that moved the project from a promising idea to a record with real momentum. Early 1974 brought friction and a hard decision. Jokes about Vini Lopez's temper had been part of the stage patter, but a pay dispute at 914 Sound Studios turned serious, and Springsteen dismissed his longtime drummer. February dates were wiped from the calendar, then hastily restored when a South Jersey club with underworld ties refused a cancellation. The band played the Satellite Lounge while a replacement was found. On David Sanchez's recommendation, Ernest "Boom" Carter learned the set in a matter of days, and the group moved forward. The road made the stakes clear. In Texas, album-oriented FM radio changed the equation. KLOL in Houston and KLBJ in Austin put deep cuts on the air, and a regional publicist slipped an unreleased R&B ballad to programmers who started getting requests. Those shows filled up. In Dallas, where there was no airplay, the room was nearly empty. Phoenix told the same story in reverse. KDKB had been spinning Spirit in the Night and Rosalita, and the Celebrity Theater's 2,650 seats sold out, leading the promoter to add dates. Around this time, a Boston review taped in a Cambridge club window prompted Springsteen to call its author, critic John Landau. They stayed in touch, and Landau caught the late show at Harvard Square Theater on May 9th. He went home and filed a column that would soon be quoted everywhere. Younger staffers at Columbia turned that line into full-page ads and store posters, though doubts inside the label persisted. Another scene nudged the company along. At Brown University's spring weekend on April 26th, a midnight set won over a student in the balcony who happened to be the son of Columbia's new president, Erwin Segelstein. After reading a blunt interview in the campus paper about label hesitation, Segelstein invited manager Mike Apple to lunch in Midtown and agreed to fund new sessions, even as A&R caution remained. Back at 914, work continued on a thin budget. Engineer Louis LaHave stretched time and gear to keep the lights on. By July, New York club dates at the Bottom Line previewed an early Jungleland and framed Born to Run as a statement of purpose, clearing the way for a rebuilt lineup and a sound that matched the ambition. Work on Born to Run turned into long, late-night sessions at 914 Sound Studios. Springsteen layered and stripped parts and kept rewriting until the shore setting, the sense of urgency, and the narrator's plea to Wendy fit together. Wendy being the young woman he addresses in the song, the person he's asking to leave town with him and start over. By August 1974, he had a finished mix on a cassette, but a friendly label exec barely reacted. Manager Mike Apple tried another path. He mailed tapes to DJs who were likely to care. WMMR in Philadelphia played it in early November. Other stations followed, and the label had to pay attention. Success on stage brought new problems. After the big July shows at the Bottom Line, pianist David Sanchez and drummer Ernest "Boom" Carter left for their own deal. Springsteen canceled dates, held open auditions, and taught the parts from scratch. Max Weinberg and Roy Bittan got the jobs. The band formally took on the E Street Band name, and early outings, with open rehearsals at the Main Point and an October set at Avery Fisher Hall, sounded tighter and more focused. New songs arrived with the reset. She's the One locked into a lean groove, and a Baroom rocker later titled So Young and in Love was cut with whoops and even fake crowd noise. Back at 914, the label said the single sounded too thick. A remix at Columbia didn't help, so the 1974 mix stayed. January 1975 work on Jungleland exposed the studio's limits: drifting piano, tricky drums, and endless takes. One trusted voice changed the direction. Landau, now a close advisor, heard a song called Wings for Wheels, suggested trims, moved the sax to the ending, and urged a stronger lift. The rewrite became Thunder Road, the new center of the record. 10th Avenue Freeze-Out arrived as a celebration of the band itself. Next came locking the team and moving to a studio that could finally capture the sound they were chasing. Springsteen made a defining choice. He wanted the record to feel like one long day in New Jersey, from first light to closing time. That simple idea gave the project a clear aim. Songs had to connect, pacing had to breathe, and the sound needed to move you from street corners to late-night rooms without losing the thread. To meet that standard, he left the small 914 studio for the larger record plant in Midtown Manhattan, focused the core players. Max Weinberg on drums, Gary Talent on bass, Roy Bittan on piano, himself on guitar and vocals, and saved extras for later. John Landau joined as co-producer. Columbia approved the plan, and sessions began on April 18, 1975 with Thunder Road, the track meant to set the tone. Thunder Road did that by opening quietly and building to a full band release, matching a story about two people taking a chance with music that rose in stages. That balance, intimate detail leading to big payoff, became the template. The band spent hours on small choices like a guitar figure that supported Bittan's piano without crowding it, while engineer Jimmy Iovine learned to keep reels ready for long, focused takes. The point was simple. Get the feeling right so the record would hit on the radio and still sound strong years later. That approach carried through the rest. Local street racing energy shaped Night, which snapped into place once the rhythm clicked. 10th Avenue Freeze-Out turned a neighborhood story into a statement about friendship and band identity. Bad Scooter, in the lyric, refers to Springsteen, and Clarence Clemens's horn locked it in. Meeting Across the River, built on Bittan's piano, shifted the mood to a late-night scene, widening the album's range. At the piano, Springsteen found the heartbreak of Backstreets, restoring an instrumental opening he had cut too far. Even the cover image fit the sound. On June 20th, Eric Miola shot Springsteen leaning on Clemens's shoulder against a white backdrop, the past and present in one frame. As the picture and songs fell into place, the pressure rose. Arguments over takes and mixes, long nights and deadlines closing in, setting up the final fights over money, sound, and trust. The record plant work set a clear direction. The next weeks were about finishing under pressure. A firm release window and a July 20th tour start date were on the calendar, and every song had to earn its place. One stubborn question was whether a quiet piece like Meeting Across the River belonged beside the louder tracks. They tried it anyway. Bitten's piano was in place, then Randy Brecker's trumpet, mixed like it was coming from down the block. And Richard Davis's upright bass gave it weight. Suddenly, the mood fit the record's night-to-day arc. Another problem was the horns on 10th Avenue freeze-out. A top-tier section arrived expecting written parts, but what came out was smooth and stiff. Steve Van Zandt dropped by, sang raw R&B lines to each player, and the track snapped into life. Springsteen immediately asked him to join the touring band. Inside the control room, two approaches kept colliding. Landau pushed for patient shaping, Appel pushed to move fast and keep momentum. Springsteen weighed both views, decision by decision. They hired arranger Charlie Colello to add strings. His parts brightened Jungleland and were mixed low on backstreets to keep the song's punch. Clarence Clemens's features were built phrase by phrase, none more demanding than the Jungleland solo. They recorded it through the night of July 19th, while another room mixed and the band rehearsed for the tour. By morning, the album was essentially done and the bus had to roll. Away from the studio's controlled sound, the confidence cracked. In Kutztown, Pennsylvania, Springsteen heard the finished master on ordinary gear, fixated on what felt wrong, and talked about scrapping the album and recutting it live. In a burst of frustration, he tossed an advance acetate into the hotel pool. Landau, calling from California, urged him to stand by the work and save new ideas for the follow-up. Appel took the opposite tack, leaning into Springsteen's doubts until the calmer choice became obvious. Springsteen reset, and they agreed to release the record they had. That decision met its public test at the Bottom Line in New York. 2 shows a night with the new material threaded among older songs created the word of mouth the label still lacked, and carried the project into release week, a sudden media spotlight, and the business fight waiting on the other side. When the lights came up after the Bottom Line run, the reaction was immediate. Reviews were rapturous. Advance orders forced Columbia to triple its first pressing, and Born to Run climbed fast. Then the spotlight widened. Time and Newsweek put Springsteen on their covers in the same week. One piece centered on the music, the other on the marketing push. The band enjoyed the moment, Appel cheered, and Springsteen pulled back. That split, public excitement versus private unease, defines this final stretch. The twin covers triggered a backlash. Some critics called the sound too packed or too close to earlier records. Springsteen read every review while playing a tour that swung between sellouts and soft nights. In London, he walked into a theater draped with hype-heavy slogans and tore them down, convinced the advertising smothered the songs. Recordings later showed engaged crowds and strong playing, but he shelved the film for decades. What he felt and what happened in the room didn't match. Pressure also hit an old nerve. As a kid, he lived between grandparents who adored him and a father battling his own darkness. That early mix of praise and doubt resurfaced here. You can hear the tug in an alternate acoustic Thunder Road from mid-1975. Same story, stripped of triumph, hinting at how bleak the album might have been. Then the business trouble landed. Contracts he'd signed in 1972 gave his manager wide control over recording and publishing. Attempts to revise the deals failed, lawsuits followed, income froze, and studio access disappeared for nearly 2 years. The strain spilled into new work, a song about a driver who wins, takes backing, and ends stranded. He said it wasn't about court papers, but the emotion is unmistakable. A settlement in 1977 cleared the logjam. With authority over his records defined, the next releases shifted from the guy who leaves to the guy who stays. First on Darkness on the Edge of Town, then Through the River and Nebraska, before a pop breakthrough put him everywhere. The turmoil around Born to Run didn't derail him. It sharpened the purpose that carried the music forward.